This week we're looking at number 1 in our series on managing for the Master. This is entitled Part of God's Family, and we look at a number of different verses. Galatians 3:26, which tells us that we are all God's children through our trust in Christ Jesus, and that everything belongs to the Lord, and we give thanks to the Lord, giving back to him since he's given all we have to us. That's Psalms and First Chronicles. God will fill us with everything we need, Philippians 4:19, and we do as what God says because we love him, 1 John 5:3. Finally, look at the amazing kind of love the Father has for us. This is why we can be called God's children, for that's who we are, 1 John 3 verse 1. And I want to concentrate really on those particular thoughts. Obviously, we're talking about stewardship this quarter. But as always, when we come to thinking about stewardship, I want to broaden it out beyond the dollars and cents, the tithes and the offerings and so on, and talk about the way in which we respond to a gracious and loving God, making sure that we are not selfish people by demonstrating that we are glad to be able to give and to provide others with what they need, and most of all to make sure that we really are supporting the causes we really believe in, because what you do with your money says a great deal about your priorities, your principles, and most of all your beliefs. So let's consider that as being part of God's family, this worldwide family, no, universe-wide family, taking it to a bigger sense even there. For we are part of this demonstration of God's answer in the great controversy. We have been made, Paul says, a spectacle to angels and to men. We are the ones who are put on view to all these people who are watching as to what really does happen when people put their trust in God, those who have been lost and now have found salvation in Jesus Christ. This family of God that isn't self-centered, that isn't dysfunctional, that isn't simply looking for their own benefit, but willing to try and do what they can for other members of that family. It's a really very significant kind of perspective, isn't it, as we think along those lines, when we realize what kind of family that God has drawn us into, that we are now part of not just our own immediate family, not just part of our local area, not even our nation, but beyond the world, to recognizing that we are part of God's answer as his children, as we just read from some of those verses, that we are really representing the family. I remember one time when I was a child, how could I best say it? I offended in a particular way. And my mother was very upset, not just because of what I'd done, but because this had become known to other people around. And she said, "What will other people think of our family since you've done all this?" And I really had to think about that. What would other people think about not just me, but the family that I represented and that I had let down? And I began to see, even and then at that young age, that what I did had implications beyond myself, and that I affected other people positively or negatively by the things that I said and the things that I did. So as we think this particular quarter as being part of God's family, let us celebrate that. Not just because we can return tithes and offerings and all the rest of that, but because we can show people who God is through what we do. Let's think about that, and may God bless you as you study.